Imagine you're living 10,000 years ago. There's no GPS, no phones, no police, no cars, no helicopters, and definitely no way to text someone. Hey, where are you? You're living with a small group of people. You know everyone. You hunt together. You eat together. You sleep near each other. And then one morning, someone is missing. At first, nobody panics. Maybe they went hunting. Maybe they went to collect firewood. Maybe they went to check a trap. So everyone waits. A few hours pass. Still nothing. Then the sun starts going down. And now there's a problem. Because in the ancient world, a person disappearing could be a matter of life and death. So what did ancient humans actually do when someone went missing? Did they search for them? Did they simply assume they were dead? Did the whole group go looking? And what happened when they never came back? Let's find out. Let's start with the most obvious question. Why would someone disappear in the first place? There were plenty of possibilities. They could have gotten injured while hunting. They could have fallen from a cliff. They could have gotten lost while traveling. They could have been attacked by an animal. They could have followed a herd of animals farther than expected. Or they could have simply taken the wrong path. And remember, the landscape these people lived in wasn't covered with roads and signs. A forest can look completely different depending on where you're standing. A river can split into multiple channels. A mountain can hide the landscape beyond it. And if you're following an animal, you might travel much farther than you planned. So imagine you're the group waiting at camp. The sun is getting lower. Everyone starts asking, where are they? Someone points toward the direction they left. And now the group has a decision. Stay or go looking. For a small community, sending people away from camp wasn't a small decision. Someone has to search. Someone has to stay behind. And if food is limited, the searchers can't disappear indefinitely. But there's another huge advantage ancient humans had. Something we don't appreciate enough today. They knew their environment extremely well. Ancient humans weren't walking through the wilderness completely clueless. Many hunter-gatherer societies depended on understanding tracks and environmental clues. And if you've ever watched an experienced tracker work, it's honestly incredible. A footprint isn't just a footprint. It can tell you the direction someone was traveling, the size of the person, sometimes how quickly they were moving. You might notice a broken branch, a disturbed patch of soil, flattened grass, a stone that has been moved, or footprints crossing a muddy area. And here's the important part. Humans weren't the only ones leaving tracks. Animals were everywhere. So people who depended on hunting had to become extremely good at reading landscapes. That same knowledge could potentially help them search for another human. Imagine the search party leaving camp. They find the person's last known tracks. They follow them. A few hundred meters. Then a kilometer. Maybe more. And then the tracks disappear. Now things get much harder. Because the person could have crossed rocks, walked through water, entered dense vegetation, or simply taken a route where their footprints weren't preserved. And at that point, the search becomes a guessing game. One of the biggest dangers wasn't necessarily getting attacked. It was getting hurt. Imagine you're hunting. You chase an animal. You step somewhere unstable. And suddenly, crack. Your leg is badly injured. You can't walk. You can't run. You can't easily get back to camp. And now you're alone. This is where being part of a community becomes incredibly important. Archaeological evidence shows that some ancient humans survived serious injuries and illnesses that would have made independent survival extremely difficult. That suggests something important. People cared for one another. So, if someone went missing and the group believed they were injured, they had a reason to search. They weren't necessarily just looking for a body. They could be looking for someone who was still alive. A person might be stranded somewhere nearby, and finding them quickly could make the difference between survival and death. But here's the problem. Searching for someone can put the searchers in danger too. Imagine searching through a forest at night. You don't have a flashlight. You don't have a map. You don't have a radio. You don't even have a guaranteed way to get back. And there could be predators, cliffs, rivers, extreme weather. So The group couldn't just send everyone running into the wilderness. They had to balance two problems. Find the missing person without creating more missing people. This is one reason social organization would have been so important. People could divide responsibilities. Some searched. Some stayed with the camp. Others gathered food. And if the missing person was a skilled hunter, toolmaker, healer, or simply an important member of the group, their disappearance could affect everyone. Because in a small community, losing one person wasn't like losing one employee at a massive company. It could mean losing 10% or 20% of the people capable of doing something important. Every person mattered. This is where things get dark. Sometimes, the search would fail. Maybe the person had fallen somewhere inaccessible. Maybe they were carried away by a river. Maybe they were killed by an animal. Maybe they became lost and never found their way back. Or maybe they simply joined another group. And this is where we have to be careful. We can't know exactly what every ancient society did when someone disappeared. There wasn't one universal ancient rulebook. Different cultures had completely different beliefs, social structures, and ways of dealing with death. But one thing is almost certain. Their disappearance would have mattered. Humans are social animals. We form attachments. We remember people. We notice when someone isn't there. And archaeological sites sometimes preserve evidence that ancient people cared deeply about individuals even after death. Burials, grave goods, carefully arranged remains, sometimes repeated use of burial locations. These things don't tell us exactly what happened when someone vanished, but they do tell us something important about ancient human relationships. People weren't disposable. And here's something we often forget. Not every disappearance ended in tragedy. A person could leave and eventually return. Maybe they had traveled farther than expected. Maybe they had been separated from the group. Maybe they encountered another group of humans. Maybe they were following animals. And imagine the moment they finally came back. You're sitting around the fire. Everyone has already started wondering if they're dead. Then someone sees a figure approaching in the distance. And suddenly, wait, is that them? Everyone turns. And there they are. Dirty, exhausted, probably hungry, but alive. That moment would have been enormous. Because in a small community, a person's return isn't just one person's good news. It's everybody's good news. There's another possibility. What if they weren't actually missing? What if they left? Humans have always moved. People migrate. People join other communities. People separate from groups. Families split. New groups form. And prehistoric populations were not necessarily isolated little tribes that stayed in exactly the same place forever. Archaeology shows that ancient humans moved across enormous distances over thousands of years. So sometimes what looks like a disappearance from one group may have been a person moving somewhere else. Maybe they found another community. Maybe they traveled with relatives. Maybe they started a new life somewhere far away. And the original group? They might never have known what happened. Imagine knowing someone your entire life, and then one day they're simply gone. No final message, no explanation, no way to search the entire world. Just gone. And that's probably the strangest thing about ancient disappearances. We have almost no way of knowing most of their stories. Archaeology is incredibly powerful, but it has limits. Bones can survive. Stone tools can survive. Fireplaces can survive. Buildings can survive. But footprints disappear. Voices disappear. Memories disappear. And sometimes, people disappear too. We can find an ancient settlement and discover that someone lived there. We can find their tools, their food remains, their bones. But we may never know where they went. And somewhere in human history, there are countless stories of people who walked away from their communities and were never seen again. So what happened when someone went missing in an ancient tribe? The answer is probably much more human than we imagine. People searched. They followed tracks. They waited. They worried. They hoped. And sometimes, they found the person. Sometimes they didn't. There were no search helicopters. No emergency broadcasts. No GPS location. No photograph to send around. just people relying on their knowledge of the land, their ability to track, and each other. And maybe that's the most important part. Because when someone disappeared, ancient humans didn't have modern technology to bring them home. They had something else. A community that cared enough to look. And thousands of years later, we're still doing the same thing. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. Because the ancient world was full of situations that sound simple, until you realize just how terrifying they actually were. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow, and everyone around you was gone,